All right. So we are starting our meeting here. I see Tanya Shan joining us. Hello, Tanya.
Good evening.
Hello. We've got four members in our audience. Five. Great. Six. All right. Well, let's get started. Um, we'll start with our roll call and our call to order. Krishna Kumar,
Present.
Frank Chauvin, Frank Chauvin.
Present. Sorry.
I knew you were there. I just needed to get the verbal. David Martin,
Present.
Howard Kurtzman,
Present.
Tanya Shand.
Present, and sorry, my camera's not working.
Oh, you're all right, Tanya. It's good to have you here. And then Matt Fay, six. Ian Hawksworth is not here. Karen Gall notified me earlier today that she was not here. Manuel's not here. Who else are we missing? I think that's it. So with six of our eight, we have a quorum, and we will begin. The big agenda item for today is going to be an update from the bid team on the progress that they are making and the next steps that they need to engage in with the U Street or the Duke District bid. So looking forward to hearing about that. As I have communicated with Mike Wagner, who is on the line right now. He's got a couple of things that he's trying to navigate through this evening. It's about 7:07 now, and he's going to be ready to give his update with us at about 7:30. So we've got a couple of things that I want to make sure that we're able to go through as a committee and just get an update on. What this also means is if you have any other new business items, committee members, now is a good time to raise them after we go through some old business updates. First item that I want to give an update is the throne toilet. So this has been on our agenda for a couple of months now. I did email David Menny and asked him for an update. His response back was that they were still looking at different sites and that to some extent it was out of the hands of the council member's office and it was with DPW and with the firm, the Throne Company, to actually kind of come back and finalize sites. I did reiterate that the community, through this committee, wants to make sure that we are able to provide feedback. And one of the clarifications that I was given is that there are relatively few sites that meet the criteria for a Throne toilet. So I do not expect us to have lots of different options to give feedback on, but I still would like them to be able to provide some feedback and or sorry, to give us some options and for us to be able to provide feedback. Questions or comments on the throne toilet? Krishna, go ahead. You're muted, Krishna, if you're speaking.
Uh, did they give you any idea of what those criteria were in terms of the location? Is it
Yeah, I mean, the biggest criteria broken into two different categories is just space.
okay?
So the actual throne itself requires a certain square footage. It's a relatively large pad. It's mostly square, probably a little bit more rectangular, and so it needs a certain square footage that is open that it can be put on. The second is that it has to be accessible to users, and so that requires additional square feet footage for the users to be able to actually kind of get in, get out for a ramp if necessary to be put on the site. And then the third is another layer of accessibility, which is that the throne toilet needs to be accessible for servicing, which means that the hoses that bring fresh water in and the tubing that brings dirty water out are able to get to and from it. And so, kind of my understanding is that they're looking for a relatively level space of land that is, not in someone's backyard that can accommodate the throne, the accessibility, and close enough to a roadway that they can get in and out to service it. The only confirmation that I've received, and this is not a surprise, and it's also not a jab, The only confirmation that I've gotten is that they fully do not intend to put it on the Duke Ellington Plaza itself, as was mentioned in earlier language. But
Yeah.
otherwise, kind of all things are open in that 500 radius that David Menning had presented to us a couple of months ago. The next two updates, one is on, or both next two updates are on the district-owned land that this group has been meeting on for some time. The first is on 1617 U Street and 1620 U Street. I know we've got a couple of folks in the audience who have been very much connected to and engaged in that particular process. So if they want to provide a community update on that, they are certainly welcome to and can raise their hands. But as I shared with you all at the last meeting, the 1617 U Street zoning decision dropped, approving the conversion or the zoning map amendment from its current, I think it's mixed use 4 to a mixed use 10. And then within a week or so of that zoning decision dropping, there were a couple of community-based motions to reconsider that were submitted to the zoning board. And so at this point, that zoning decision has been made. It is being contested, and so there will be a process now that will unfold there as those motions for reconsideration are work their way through the process. Um, I'm going to go to Arlene quickly, just because her hand went up. I know that she's been involved, and she might be able to provide some kind of update from the community. And then, Frank, I see your hand up next.
Yeah, hi everyone. I just wanted to clarify that when the final ruling was made, all the parties involved in the case were notified, and those were the people who could submit requests for reconsideration. So it wasn't just the general public; it was made through all the parties in opposition or in favor of the final ruling. And just one other clarification: the upzoning was done on the southern half of that property. So the side that's facing U Street was rezoned to MU10. And where the police station currently is, the side facing V Street, that was left MU4. So it was a split decision, split zone. Just to clarify, the whole parcel of almost 2 acres was not upzoned to MU10. It was only the southern half.
And Arlene, thank you for that update. Can you clarify? I thought I had been doing a good job of tracking, and now I'm wondering if maybe I missed something. Was there a zoning map amendment proposal for the northern parcel to also take that to mixed use 10? Because I know that there was a lot of back and forth feedback where there had been a degree of compromise in terms of a portion of it would be lower than the maximum height of mixed use 10. But can you clarify whether there was an application to upzone that northern parcel to mixed use 10?
Yes, that was the original application.
Okay. And so
Yeah,
that was not upzoned. It is left at mixed use 4, which has a
correct.
maximum height of 50 feet versus the mixed use 10, which has a maximum height of 100 feet.
Yeah, 100 plus, I think, penthouse or something like that. It'll turn out to be more than 100. But yes, so basically, the compromise was a split zone, and there are also some, I think they're called step backs,
Hmm.
that were also considered as a separate zoning issue, and that was for the MU10 portion to step back on the northern side because they were going to abut directly with the townhouses that are already on the V Street side. So now the MU10 will be stepped back a little bit just to allow more light and air to come to those very low rise townhouses that are still on the V Street next to the police station.
Okay, great. Thank you, Arlene. Arlene,
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna leave you in a speaking mode right now as we get a couple of questions from the commissioners in case you can answer them better than I. Frank.
Yes, it's actually for Arlene and Matt. Can you tell me, Arlene, is it 50% exactly, or is it a bisected dual zoning? outcome with the MU4, MU10? Is it 50% the southern part of the entire lot and 50% the northern part of the entire lot, split equally between the MU10 and the MU4? That's my first question. And secondly, how many parties have submitted a continuation or a objection to the
Reconsideration. Yeah,
recon motion for
reconsideration.
reconsideration? How many parties? How
Geez.
many parties are there? And they have standing just because they applied as a oppositional party before some date specific?
Yeah, we had to apply as a party way back when this whole zoning case started. Um, and the zoning hearings were conducted based on the parties. I mean, individuals could speak, but parties had extra
Standing.
time to speak. Yeah. So uh, the parties, because we were registered as parties, we were notified. All the parties were notified of the final decision, and only the parties were given a chance to apply for reconsideration. And the reconsideration is based on the ruling. It's not based on new things that they want to bring up. It's based on what the zoning commission finally decided. And in the case of my party, which was homeowners within 200 feet of this property, um, we wanted the zoning commission to reconsider that they did not cite any of the expert witnesses that we brought. Um, they did not address the issue of displacement. I believe another party did that as well. I think I think Frank, three parties, opposition parties, applied for reconsideration, and I don't know if any. Well, I don't think any of the parties in favor applied for reconsideration, but that's as far as I know on that. And when the timeline is for the zoning commission to get back to us, I don't know.
Let me
All right. Well,
try to
thank you.
answer
And then
Frank,
and then
your
the
other.
breakdown between the two lots.
Yeah. So Frank, am I
Oh,
muted?
I don't
No,
know if it's
no.
a direct 50%. Go ahead, Matt. If maybe you know better, but it's not a direct 50%, but you know where Seton Street is? Seton Street kind of bisects the the lot there. So are you bringing up a map?
I did. Can you all see the map now?
Yeah, so it's not really bisecting, but the step backs were on that northern part near the MU4. Um,
So Frank, this pink line where you see all the pluses, because
Yeah.
it was rezoned in IZ
Ah,
plus to allow for additional IZ density.
yeah.
So this portion right here, which to Arlene's point is not a full 50%,
Correct.
or sorry, it's more than 50%, is the mixed use 10 IZ plus. And then the portion that's on the north side, where Seton essentially starts running north to the corner, remains mixed use 10, which was the original zoning of that parcel.
So
right. And
interesting,
this,
the map's updated already, even though the decision's not, I mean, the decision's final until it's overturned by the contested oppositional parties here, I guess. So
Yeah,
it's
and well,
interesting that it's part of the map already.
they make these changes very quickly. So we had another zoning map amendment in just outside of LaDroit Park related to the Howard University Hospital. And as soon as that decision is dropped by the zoning board, the maps get updated right away. Um, so yeah, that's kind of a standard practice.
Thank you.
and the reconsideration is the first step that opposition parties can take to the zoning decision. And after the reconsideration ruling comes down, the opposition parties can actually take it to the Board of Zoning Appeals. They can appeal the decision. So that's another step that could possibly take place. But the first one is the reconsideration of what they put in their ruling.
Okay. We'll talk a little bit about the development timeline in a moment. Krishna, you had your hand up. You're next.
Yes. Actually, I think Frank asked all the questions I was going to ask, so I'll keep my mouth shut.
I hear that all the time. So just to kind of come back right to the timeline, there's two things I want to touch on. One is the timeline, and so you may recall I gave an update at our last meeting. Daniel Lyons had given me a call to let me know that the zoning decision had dropped. We talked very briefly about the timing of DemPed's development plans, and he reaffirmed that they were not imminent. And so, although Frank, to your point, the zoning map has been updated, DemPed is not out there actively, finalizing an RFP and trying to solicit any kind of input. The other thing that Daniel Lyons reaffirmed, and I always appreciate that he does this, was that he was very well aware of our desire to have a formalized public input process in the finalization of the RFP, per the resolution that this committee passed and submitted back in September, October of last year. And so that's on his mind. And so he and I are in a mode of checking in every 60 days just to see where things are at. And so as soon as I hear anything, I will be letting the community and this committee know that we will need to work with them to formalize a community feedback process. The other thing I wanted to maybe pressure test with this group is that the commission has weighed in on the development of 1617 U Street several times. It weighed in on the kind of the initial plan for upzoning. It weighed in after lengthy community feedback on those step backs and step downs and setbacks that Arlene mentioned. And so at this point, although the decision has been made and is being contested, I am not feeling any kind of urgency or even need for action by this committee to comment further on 1617, other than to wait for the zoning process to take its course, which at this point is kind of a legal slash quasi-legal process, and to continue to advocate with DemPed for engagement as their planning efforts go forward. But I want to test that thinking with this group to see if there's any other further kind of formal weigh in that we want to have at this time beyond what the commission and this committee has already done. Frank, go ahead.
Not related specifically to this lot. I mean, because I think the time frame is the time frame, and I think we have plenty of time to resolve and continue to discuss and weigh in as it becomes picture becomes clearer. But I think it just is the wider opportunity loss because there's nothing going on U Street. And the focus is we've heard some machinations about the Reeves Center. So I think we should advocate for some work being done because we're a mess and anything that's important is like downtown conversions to residential and RFK redevelopment. And we're left in a lurch probably till the next mayor, it appears more and more so all over for these two big lots here. So just a renewed focus and whatever we can do for the Reeves Center from my perspective. And I guess the latest update there is that they're trying to separate into two lots so they can move forward with some development over at the Reeves Center. So maybe we just dive into that as a focus next.
Yeah, I think that probably makes sense. Let me maybe comment on what you commented on, and we probably not probably we will be getting someone from DemPed back to meet and present to us on the Reeves Center at our April meeting. But I think your general read is right as it relates to the public lands on U Street. There's a confluence of forces right now that are slowing things way down. One of those is, I think, the not only the change in the administration that we're all anticipating, but also, sorry, Arlene, I'm going to drop you back off
Oh, sorry.
again.
Yeah, thank
No,
you.
no, you're good. Um, the change in leadership, but also the just kind of the economic conditions more broadly with high interest rates and the cost of capital, as well as the uncertainty that's been created around employment and jobs and incomes in DC. And so I think you're right. All of the government, DC government sponsored activities are going to be directed to Capital One, and the RFK Stadium for the foreseeable future. Um, and I think that is something that we do need to think about how we advocate for U Street. And maybe that's a conversation. We've got Mike Wagner here, who I will not put on the spot with this question, but maybe offline, one of the conversations that we need to talk about is how is it that we as a community can be advocating for and supportive of development happening on U Street? Because right now, you're right, a lot of things have stalled. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But maybe we can be thinking about how we can be better, kind of more effective champions of development on the corridor. What I'm going to do though is to transition kind of with that question to the Reeves Center, just as a couple of quick updates. I'm probably going to have to zoom this in just a little bit if I can. This is Urban Turf. This was an article that I'd shared with the commission, or sorry, with the committee members. But this came out just a couple of weeks ago, I think right after our last meeting. But the announcement essentially is that they are planning to pursue development on the Reeves Center parcel in two separate phases. I think what this suggests to me, number one, is uh, that they are kind of finalizing their proposal. A development proposal has still not been finalized and submitted. But at least at this point, we've got some conceptual renderings, which means that there are conversations at least taking place about what is the future of the site. And then the second is, to Frank's point, is that there may be discussions going on right now about how different aspects of the site are addressed zoning wise. Right now, the thinking is that there's going to be three major components to the development. One would be office space, primarily occupied by the NAACP, moving their headquarters from Baltimore to U Street. The second would be a hotel on U Street, which would be our first in the area. And then third would be condominium, or not condominiums, apartments, and residential. And so I think the proposal that was put forward here is that the office space and the hotel space, along with retail, would be first, and then to follow would be the residential space, which I'm sure from a development perspective makes sense. And if anybody has that expertise, they can certainly share it. But this is kind of what we're seeing in the news, and we'll be getting DemPed to come and share with us what they have, along with the timeline that they think they'll be receiving a formal development proposal for council feedback. And that, of course, is the same time that the public, including our committee and the commission, have an opportunity to provide feedback on the proposed development as well. Krishna, go ahead.
Yeah, so let me just tie just three things quickly together on this, in that I'm glad to see some progress here. I am definitely very curious to see exactly what these proposals will look like. I understand that when they put together these pretty renderings, these renderings are not reality. They are just renderings, they're computer imagery. But that being said, when they presented these renderings to us, essentially they said sort of the building on the left here in the picture would be the NAACP office and the hotel, and the building on the right, which is fronting on 14th Street, would be the residential. So I am extremely curious to see how these renderings are going to change with this proposal, because I think that it's going to be a very complex job to do. The other thing that I'm a little worried about is one of the major concessions that the developers made was to increase the size of the parking garage, I believe, to go down to 2 stories. We do need parking in that area. There's going to be parking needs in that building as well. And again, how, just from a physical standpoint, are you going to do that if you're only building on, say, half the site? So I think there's a lot of questions that we need to answer.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and I think our first step, we've been all trying to, I think, track and stay on top of this project. I think the next step is let's get DemPed in. So I have reached out to them to ask them to join us at our April meeting, to give us an update specifically on the Reeves Center. And then I think one of the things that we should be pushing them on hard is clarity around timeline for when the actual plans will be released. I don't think I'm happy to reach out to CSG Urban Partners, who is the developer, to see if they're willing to come and share anything. And in fact, I will. I can't imagine that they would, and I certainly would not hold it against them if they said, "Look, we're not going to come and present publicly plans that are not public ready." Um, but I do agree with you, Krishna, that this is a major, I think, investment and opportunity in and for the corridor. And there's a lot of, I mean, it's the same thing I say to DDOT all the time. I live here. I drive on this street. I use this intersection every single day. I see things that you don't see. And so I think it's good for us to be able to provide helpful feedback and to learn more about this. And we should have that opportunity for feedback as the plans are formalized and submitted.
Yeah. And just, I mean, and I'm just reiterating this, but I mean, a major part of the essential, I think everyone on this committee knows this. The essential deal is this land will be given to the developer for free in exchange for building us quote unquote good things. And in this case,
Mhm.
good things is affordable housing. And if they're not building us the affordable housing, what exactly are we getting? That's what I really would like to drill down on.
Krishna, I think they made a decisive statement in the article that part of the ongoing discussion for the entire residential piece, which is whether they would hold on to the land or sell it off. I think they added this
Yeah.
dilemma here. So I mean that adds a whole new realm of complication and consideration, you know.
Yeah. And again, these are just data points for everyone to just remember about, like when literally this committee was looking at the 965 Florida site, which is where, the Whole Foods came in. This was a major fight because that site was sold to the developer for, I want to say, 600 or $900,000, that entire piece of land. And in exchange, though, what did we got? Did we got? We got about 187 fairly subsidized rooms in terms of apartments. We can question whether that was a good exchange or not, but that was definitely a quid pro quo that was being, offered and answered. And I just want to make sure that we actually see that here. And this is where some funny games can be taking place.
To Frank's earlier question, I've put back. Let me know if you can see my screen again. I've got the zoning map up. Um, But to Frank's point, I think one of the things that we have also heard in the background is a desire to upzone the parcel. And so what you can see here is that the Reeves Center itself straddles two different zones. So Arts 4 allows for development up to, I think, about 100 feet. So it's very similar to the mixed use 10 zoning from a height perspective. And then this area back here is either an RA4 or it actually looks like it's an RA2. RA2 is actually a relatively low density zone that only allows, I think, for residential apartments up to something like 35 or 40 feet. And so I think that was a part of the discussion when we heard from Demped back in the spring that the developer had come back to them and said, look, this is something that we'd like to reconsider. There's also an additional uh, residential unit that is right here, which I think is actually part of DC housing. I'm not quite sure, so we need to do
No,
some research on that. Great,
it's
go ahead.
it's private, you
Great,
know.
okay,
The issue, however, is that it's built on the air rights of the garage.
there you go.
And so it's a real mess in terms of but it's a non-DC property. And then to your point, Matt, if you take your cursor just to the right and you can see that little sliver of the Reeves Center, and more importantly, that it's that pale area is actually kind of an open patio area. That
Oh,
area
here.
is what I've always suspected. No, a little north of it. Yeah, right there. That's kind of an open patio right now. So when the Reeve Center was built, no zoning concerns. However, clearly a developer would like to use that, and that would be certainly what I always suspected what they were talking about with a map amendment in that area.
Yep. Yeah, and I think this patio area was as at one point was a childcare outdoor play area. I think I still see
Yeah.
the equipment and the toys out there. Okay. So yeah, I mean, so I think just looking at this map, and thinking about literally the different layers, as you think about parking lot being underneath the bulk of this, as you think about the idea of a split development, as you think about cleaning up some zoning around this. Um, Frank, I think it speaks to your point about this is going to take longer than I think we'd all like. And so maybe that's another question of how we can be helpful. And then I think it just speaks to some of the complexity. So we'll get DemPed to come back. We'll prep them with these questions, ask them to share whatever they can share, so that we are able to get some insight as to where these projects are headed. It's just after 7:30. Mike Wagner told me that he was going to be available at 7:30. So Mike, I'm going to promote you to panelist. Um, and as I do that, what I want to do is to kind of introduce this conversation that Mike is going to take us through. Mike is one of the leads on the formation of the bid. He's with Quadrangle Development, and he's been working closely with some of the larger landowners, businesses, developers along the U Street corridor to think about and put together the elements of a business improvement district. He and his colleague Mike McCarthy have a lot of experience. You've heard them talk before. They've been with this group really for a year. We had a big presentation from them in February and March of 2025. And so they've been doing a whole lot of work to organize this and to put it together. We've got a map of the bid area, and he has made a lot of progress in terms of what are the specific next steps, getting resources to be able to advance this, answered a whole bunch of questions about leadership structure and governance. And so he's going to lay out for us essentially where they are, where they're headed, and kind of answer some questions. Before Mike starts talking, though, one of the things that I want to put to this group, the committee members, is that I would very much like for our committee to pass a resolution in support of the bid formation at our April meeting. And I would like that resolution to go to the commission for approval in April. You know this about me. I'm not a carte blanche sort of guy. And so if we're going to get behind something and put our weight behind something, I also want to make sure that, you all feel good about getting your questions answered, understanding what we're getting behind and supporting, et cetera. And so we don't have to get all those questions answered tonight, but what we can do is make sure that we're clear on the questions that we would like to get answered. And we should also think about who else we need to talk to or meet with. But I would really like for us to be able to, get our questions answered and get our support publicly made to help advance the bid. And then the last thing I'll say, and I'd like others to comment as Mike get going on his presentation. I have been watching with a great deal of frustration and maybe even sadness at the state of the U Street economy. And I am watching other parts of the city successfully grow a thriving and successful economy. DuPont Circle is doing very, very well. We've got brand new areas where we've got brand new areas that are opening up, like the Wharf and Navy Yard and Union Market. And those economies are growing and diversifying, and they are taking away a lot of the foot traffic that used to come to U Street. And so I do believe that we need an advocate to help the businesses succeed in U Street. I think we need a champion that is more well-resourced and more expert than our ANC or our various civic associations. And so I'm excited about what this bid can do for the community and do for the business community. So with that said, Mike, I'm going to turn it to you. I can pull up the map at any point that you'd like me to. I'll get it ready in the background. But welcome. It's good to have you here, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Matt, for that wonderful introduction. I now realize that my email to you, my schedule was a little misleading. I just had some soccer players hop into my car. I'm driving carpool tonight. So I can do this here. Probably not as well if I were stationary, but I do want to make sure I get some of this through to you guys. I'd also say if you guys have other business for the next 20 minutes, be out of the car in about then, but I can also just kind of do it now while I'm driving. Apologies for that, because I do appreciate the opportunity and platform to speak with everyone this evening about our efforts on the bid.
Got it. Sorry about that. I
No,
thought
no,
you
it was
were
my, it
free
was my
at
email was
7:30.
poor. Yeah. Free before 7:30 and then back at about 7:50 or 8 o'clock. So is that okay, Matt, if you have other things to get through the next 20 minutes, or I can just go now? It's up to you.
We don't actually have a whole lot else on the agenda. I actually covered the stuff I wanted to cover, thinking that you needed to go until 7:30.
Well, I'll
But
go
if you
ahead and
want to,
go now then. It's no
yeah, if you
problem
want
at
to just
all.
take us through it, and then Mike, the thing I will say to you, but the thing I also say to the committee is that we'd love to have you back in April, right? I kind of want this to be a hey gang, here's our update, here's where we're at. I want our committee, because we haven't talked about this since August, to be able to say what are the questions that we'd like to get answered. We can put them in an email to Mike, and then Mike, when you come back again in April, as we finalize a resolution, we'll have more time. So maybe, given that you're, moving around, if you want to just use this time for a brief update on where you're at, your next steps, and then we can talk as a committee about the questions that we've got, that we can send to you.
Absolutely. That sounds perfect. And again, I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone here on the call this evening. It's a great platform of very dedicated people in the community. And we've been putting a lot of work into this effort so far, and excited to share our progress. So the big announcement, really, where we are, is that we're officially launching the petition drive next week. We've modernized the approach. We've hired a new consultant who successfully completed the Soul of the City bid in Congress Heights, and he's helping kind of modernize the infrastructure which we're going to go about this petition drive. So instead of having kind of paper Adobe type files, it's going to be an electronic signature process. And right now, we're just putting the final touches on organizing the property database of owners, such that each owner of a parcel can receive one petition. It'll be pre-filled out with all the special purpose entities, square and lot information, such that the ease of execution for this owner will be one petition and one signature for their entire holdings. So that's excited. We're excited to be at the process where we're officially launching the bid and trying to reach the goals of 50% of all the assessed value within the bid boundary and 25% of all total parcels. Our steering committee is made up of a number of prominent stakeholders, including Howard University, IMP, which operates the 930 Club and Lincoln Theater, my company Quadrangle, which recently delivered the Langston apartment building, several other property owners. Right now, within the parcels and land controlled by the steering committee, we are about a third of the way to each of the goals on assessed value and parcels. So we have a very good start, which gives us a high likelihood of success. That being said, we do have to get out here and make our pitch to the rest of the community, such that we can gain that support and officially be established through the district's application process and then the legislative process. So that's the major announcement. We've been talking about this. We've done the feasibility studies. We've had the opportunity to present to you several times before. We're happy to come back in April and any subsequent meetings. But yeah, so now we're really starting that full court press to get the petition drive completed, because at this point, it's really the critical path item to establishing the bid. And, from a standpoint of why a bid, why now? Well, really, we're just in a very competitive city environment for resources and attention. I mean, I think I've heard the commissioners talking earlier tonight just about making sure that they have that attention, the focus being on downtown, the focus being on the ballpark, focus being on the new football stadium. So, establishing a bid, having an executive director gives a focal point for the neighborhood to focus, advocacy for the needs and wants of our district, of course, with the huge focus on safety and security and creating that public order. We think there's a strong value proposition from the bid in terms of, hey, you are going to have to contribute for these additional bid taxes, but there's a number of things that the bid can do around programming and other activities that drive revenue that more than pays for it. We see that in Noma with the Metropolitan Beer Trail. It's generating, I think, over $1 million of new revenue in business for that neighborhood. We see it with Porch Fest and Adams Morgan partnership, where bid members report making enough additional incremental revenue on those 2 weekends each year to more than cover their bid taxes, for the 6-month period. So we think there's a strong value proposition. We see the neighborhood falling behind, frankly. There's a dozen or 13 bids all across the city competing for resources, competing for tenants, for residents, for visitors. So we think this is a critical step in returning the neighborhood to its full potential, and we would appreciate your support. So, one question is what can you do to support this effort? We certainly, if you have questions, certainly get them into Matt, and we're happy to answer them on the next call in a more detailed manner. But what you can do right now is, if you're a business owner, please ask Matt for my email. Shoot me an email. I'll make sure you get your petition. We'll confirm exactly which parcels you own, and we'll get that delivered to you as soon as possible. We're going to be launching next week, like I said. If you're a business operator and don't own the land or the building that you operate in, tell your landlord. Email me with a CC to your landlord and say, hey, I support this, and I would love for you to sign this. We want these resources. We want this attention in our neighborhood. Tell your neighbors, tell other folks that you do business with, that you know along the corridor, that this is starting, and this is now the time for us to come together and create this focused advocacy for the neighborhood. This neighborhood has so much potential. We recently delivered an apartment building and got it leased up. We've got a couple more projects on the way. There's the challenges right now to capitalize a new project and start new development are vast. These are improving the quality of the neighborhood, the safety, security, the cleanliness, targeting these investments. That's a huge way to create the conditions necessary for additional development, whether it's at the Reeves Center, the fire station redevelopment, along the Howard parcels, north of U Street and Georgia Avenue. There's a lot more potential to come, and we think this is one step in that process of returning the neighborhood. So that's the quick spiel. Happy to pause there, and if there's some questions from the group, happy to take them and either answer them now or on the call next month. But thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, Mike, appreciate it. And now your kids are probably clued into what you do all day in the office.
There's a lot of stifled laughter and snickers here, but I'm not sure they're as impressed. Hopefully, you guys are more impressed than the soccer team here.
Well, consider us impressed. Tanya, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Yes. My question is, once the bid is established, will you do things like, for example, suggest, okay, we have, 10 bars. Thriving neighborhoods need, X, Y, and Z, and try and get those types of businesses to diversify? Do you become an advocate for, let's say, the housing finance building? How much beyond safety and cleanliness and so forth, how much do you get involved into, once you're bid, the actual revitalization of the area, getting businesses or startups to come, making sure that it's diverse and attractive to businesses and people? How much do you get into that?
It's a critical part of what the bid does. I think first and foremost, like safety and security, kind of getting that piece. But no, absolutely a function that the bid does. We know that in Noma, they acted almost as like a tenant broker, for a brewery, to help them find location, make introductions to landlords. So absolutely, if you talk to Jean Holmes at 930 Club, I know she's been advocating for a music store for a very long time. So no, those are absolutely things, trying to put together like a merchandising plan, like what are the types, which, say like the retail program of what type of business is there. And then,
Right.
Using the collective resources of the many real estate owners and industry professionals that, make up our steering committee, absolutely the type of thing that we can try and do. So yeah, there's the dollars for branding and advertising. U Street has such a rich history that is really easy to lean into. There's other ways to raise money through the foundation to create the resources beyond just the bid taxes. So there's a lot of leverage, a lot of levers to pull in that sense. In terms of, advocating for a specific project or, directly financing, no, that is not something that the bid would do. But certainly in terms of creating branding and creative marketing efforts, in terms of driving events and foot traffic that can demonstrate sales history that is appealing to new tenants, helping to identify those tenants or making sure that commercial brokers know about spaces that we have. Those are all sorts of things that the bid can do.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Good question, Tanya and Mike. Thank you. We've got Krishna's hand, Frank's hand, and Arlene's hand. I'm going to cap the questions there just so that Mike can get back to his life, and then we'll keep talking about questions after that. So Frank, go ahead. Or Krishna, I thought you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'll just go quickly.
Yeah.
Mike, thanks for coming in. I don't know if you really handle any of the retail leasing at your new building there. I'm just wondering what you're hearing about, what are the challenges for leasing out those spaces for retail? I mean, what's the sort of what are the things that are the issues that are coming up and potential tenants saying?
Sure, happy to address that. And to be clear, this is a little outside the bid, but I'm happy to address that as like just as an apartment owner, a
Yeah.
representative of an apartment owner. So we do have one lease executed at the Langston. It's for a boutique fitness operator, Sweat DC. We're in the process of getting that space permitted and built out. And we expect them to open, if not at the very end of this year, early in 2027. We're also negotiating term sheets with 2 or 3 other tenants as well. So, that process is coming along, if maybe a little slower than we'd hoped. And I know 4 Points LLC, the owner of Progression Place across 7th Street from us, is part of our steering committee, Steve Castle. And I know that he reported on our last meeting that they've had some success releasing some of their spaces. So they're doing a lot better there. So we're very excited about that because that kind of retail presence, I think, is so critical to eyes on the street, positive foot traffic, all the things that we like about a vibrant and healthy neighborhood. But in terms of the challenges, I think, well, one is just, a paucity of good operators, right? It's a challenging business being in retail. And I think identifying, good operators is certainly as challenging as ever. And, you're competing, with a number of other vibrant and growing districts around the city. It kind of gets to our core argument of why a bid is important because, maybe we're falling behind against a NOMA or a Southwest Waterfront or a Friendship Heights or a DuPont that already kind of has these focused resources in place and can make their pitches that way. I think one, the capital needs for these retail spaces are intense. Certainly we're well capitalized with our construction loan. But a lot of good operators aren't necessarily capital rich, and so you're having to bring a significant amount of capital to, especially to these newly built storefront spaces in new apartment buildings. So that's certainly a challenge. And then in terms of just making sure that like the credit worthiness and the cash flow from the retail business, a lot of times, we're underwriting retail as more of an amenity for the apartment as opposed to, say, a profit center within our income statement. A lot of times, by the time you're done building out the space and paying commissions, the free cash flow above and beyond your costs aren't until years 8, 9, and 10 of a lease. As much as we wish that every tenant made it that far, that's not always the case. So, it's certainly a challenging environment, but I think we do take a thoughtful approach to the retail. We're large owners in Mount Vernon Triangle and participants in the community improvement district there. Like say 250 Barbecue, a bake joint, fortunately recently closed. But so we I think we try to take a thoughtful approach to curating that retail and have a nice mix of operators that but yeah, no, retail is a tough biz. I'm probably who am I telling this to? I'm sure you guys know way better than I do about that. But so yeah, no, so we're making progress. It's been a little challenging and but we'll continue to work through it and get those spaces open as soon as we can.
Great. Thank you.
Hopefully I answered your question.
Yep.
Great. Frank, go ahead. Then Arlene.
Yeah, Mike, thank you for your presentation and the recap and your reverberation on, being a leader for promoting good business, mixed business, all types of business in the neighborhood that is going in a direction that many of us fear. So anyway, I appreciate that. But my point is a quick question, and it's not related to the bid, but it's related to your ownership interests, your ownership on 7th Street at the new building between 7th between S&T on the Langston. And so two thoughts here or questions. Can you tell me your business model for Quadrangle, because I've been sort of promoting the soundness of Quadrangle being investing in our community as a long-term investor. You guys don't have the business model generally of building and selling off, right? You hold your build out. Am I correct? So therefore, the community should really be supporting you in larger ways than just because you're organizing a bid. But you guys are committed to the neighborhood by not selling off property. Is that correct? And then I have one more follow-up question.
Sure. So one, Quadrangle has been in business for over 50 years. We invest only in the DC metropolitan area. We do hospitality, office, multifamily, but we're only focused on this region. So we've been longtime investors here in DC. Hi, Charlie. We capitalize. We have institutional capital that we raise from a number of partners, and we use that to seed new projects. And we have held the model where we can keep a longer term ownership interest in the building, while though eventually we'll have to recapitalize the deal and take out our fund capital, which is more short term. But I think you can point to our examples in Mount Vernon Triangle, which were developed with this private fund capital. And then we just brought in a longer term institutional partner for the longer run. There's buildings like West Park Apartments in DuPont that we've owned for over 40 years. So it's not certainly in every situation where we will own the building forever, but we're extremely committed to the district. Like I said, we have another couple projects to come with Howard University up on Georgia Avenue between Bryan and W Streets there, kind of north of Bond Bread and south of McDonald's. So, we already own that land, and we're actually trying to capitalize that new project right now. So, absolutely committed to the neighborhood and the city. We were involved in founding the DuPont, the original downtown bid, as well as the Mount Vernon Community Improvement District. We're involved in the DuPont Circle bid as well. So this is something that we do, and the advocacy that we feel is very important to the city in terms of being a good steward, being a good neighbor, thinking about the city in a long-term sense. Because while our financial investments do better when the city does better, it's high tide raises all boats. We certainly don't want our building can't be successful if the other buildings aren't successful. Our buildings and the other buildings can't be successful unless people feel safe and secure. Businesses are able to operate freely, without some red tape. I should have added that as a retail challenge, just getting the permits to build out and the safety and the health inspections. Man, the city can be really tough on the permitting. So those are the type of things that we continue to advocate for, both on our own and through our bids. But yeah, no, definitely a long-term ownership perspective, both with our investments and with our retailers. We went through a lot during COVID. We worked with all our retailers. We came up with the payment plans. Landlords need to realize that they're really on a percentage rent deal with their tenants, even if it's not in the contract, because you can only pay so much rent as you have in sales. So no, we definitely try to take a thoughtful long-term approach to the city. It's where we live and where we work.
Thank you for that. And one quick follow-up. This again is your hat as a property owner there on 7th Street and some other burgeoning projects here in the neighborhood. But we have this issue regarding ABCA, the deputy mayor for public safety and the deputy mayor for DEMPED, not weighing in on the detrimental harms that are being proffered by our Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Administration, allowing 5 a.m. operators. And I just want to, I'm not asking you to take a stand because you're a business person and you may feel differently, but there is no good reason that bars should stay open after 2 and 3 a.m. because we don't have the public safety, there's not enough policing, and there's no ABCA staff to watch over the sheep or watch over the hens. My issue is that only bad stuff goes on after 2 and 3 a.m. if you're not selling alcohol. And so my question is just a request that if you work with the deputy mayor for public safety and deputy mayor for planning, that you opine against allowing 6 a.m. operating hours after alcohol sales end. And I'm just sort of saying that as a convicted advocate against this proposal because it's bad, nothing but bad for the neighborhood, and nobody's listening. And maybe they listen to the big guys like you. So I appreciate your thoughts on that
And
matter.
Yeah,
and
no,
Frank,
happy to opine on that. And especially with 3 kids in the car, nothing good happens after midnight. Get to bed. So yeah, we actually operate across the street from the Ace Lounge, and we've been actively involved in the app cases there in terms of the closing hours. We even had, I think, the operator come up into one of our apartments and kind of hear how loud it could get. And I know Matt has been involved in that effort as well. So, and we've mentioned it to Steve Castle as well. I understand, retailers are struggling and they need every last bit of revenue to kind of help make ends meet. But, we agree with you. That's not a great business hour. We've talked to the commander of the 3rd district. I know he presented at a U Street Business Roundtable meeting on the very fact of that it's emptying when there's not people available to police it. And, so we're absolutely with you on that. We want to support healthy, vibrant retail at normal operating hours. I mean, DC is really more of an 18-hour city, right? We're not New York. We're not a 24-hour city, really. Maybe that's controversial. I don't know. But so, yeah, no, we're with you. We want good, healthy foot traffic. We don't want that party that's been coming on summer nights and not really helping our retailers. So we're absolutely with you on just kind of common sense operating hours and making sure that, I mean, it's a mixed use environment. We have both retailers, we have residents. We need to make sure we can all coexist. Live peacefully. Make money peacefully. Operate our businesses. So yeah, totally with you on that. And then those are the type of focused advocacy positions that the bid can take. We're having this executive director who's laser focused, the fulcrum of collecting feedback from property owners, from residents, from cultural stakeholders in the neighborhood, and transmitting that to the police. I mean, we've heard straight from, Deputy Mayor Apia and why am I blanking on Demped? I'm blanking on her name. Unfortunately, I talked to her several times. That they need that type of person to interact with in the neighborhood. That they don't know who to call. They don't have time to make 60 calls. Who do they need to talk to? So yeah, no, we absolutely believe in those type of active advocacies and working with the city, and we think that the bid can play. You're welcome, Teddy. Good night. And it can absolutely play that role on U Street, and we look forward to doing so if we can get the community's support through this petition process.
Great. Frank, thanks for the questions. And Mike, thanks for the answers. Last question, and then we're going to let Mike go. Arlene.
A quick question. Can you remind us of the boundaries of the bid, how far up and down U Street it goes? And I think at one point it was also going to stretch down onto 14th Street. Could you just remind us of the boundaries of the bid?
Yep. So Mike, you may not be able to see this because you're on your phone. Arlene, let me know if you can see the map here.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. So I'm going to just say this and then Mike can talk. The dark gray highlighted areas surrounded by the blue border, those are the areas that are inside of the bid boundaries. And so you can see that it runs from LaDroit Park over here at roughly 5th and Florida, up Florida Avenue, west along U Street, over to the intersection of U and New Hampshire. And then you can also see that it extends a little bit north on 14th Street, just up to Florida Avenue, and south a little bit down 14th Street to S Street. So let me pause there. Mike, what else would you want to add to that?
No, absolutely. So this is the map. This is what we're basing our revenue projections off of, our parcel counts, assessment totals in terms of meeting the thresholds for the petition drive. Just a couple notes on why the map is drawn this way. Because it may seem odd if you're not versed in, kind of bid details. But bids do not include, kind of individual residential homes. But once you're in we tend to focus it on the commercial corridors rather than on the primarily residential streets. The second point is that one of the challenges in establishing a bid along the U Street corridor in Greater Shaw is that it is somewhat of a low density neighborhood, I say in contrast to say like the downtown bit that is all primarily kind of office buildings and hotels. So the challenge has been drawing a map with sufficient assessed value to derive enough revenue at a taxation level that is satisfactory to owners, yet creates a critical mass of revenue such that we can actually provide services and make a difference against the size of the service area. And specifically thinking about the clean teams, the brand ambassadors, our eyes on the street who are out there every day in terms of making sure that you can provide quality services. Like for an example, I know that if you draw the boundary too big and you grab too much space that's not kind of pulling in revenue, then you're going to end up in a situation where you're just not doing it well enough across the area. So that's kind of the challenge. And I would say that this map is, this is what we're working for. But but I would say it is not 100% final. As the petition drive goes on and we see, where the math is and kind of how things are going, it may be necessary to tweak the map around the borders, around the edges, a little bit, just as we think about being successful in terms of hitting the thresholds of 50% of assessed value and 25% of all parcels. And then the last point being, and if you are a resident and you are not within the bid boundary and you're saying, well, man, how is this helping me? Why would I advocate for this? Is that, the negative externalities that come from a commercial corridor are generated in the commercial corridor and then spill over into the neighborhood. It's the people trying to find parking, in your neighborhood and taking that space, or then maybe doing something around or in their car that, isn't exactly what you'd want to see on a residential street. By cleaning up and bringing more order to the commercial aspects of the corridor, we feel those attendant benefits will flow into the neighborhood as well, and hopefully create, the mixed use amenities that people sought out by living in the neighborhood in the first place. So that's a little bit about the map. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Mike, thank you for being a carpool super dad and being a bid superstar. Thank you for that. If you want to stay on the line and feel free. If you want to hop off, feel free. I think the question that I want to put to the committee members, but Mike, don't feel like you need to answer these questions now. If you do stay on, what I'd actually prefer is that we take a few minutes to get questions jotted down. But what questions, committee members, do you all have that we want to get answered before we are reviewing a resolution in support next week or next month? What
I'm
are
going to
the
put
things?
myself on mute, Matt, and then just kind of hear what you guys are talking about. But
Yeah,
thank you very much for the opportunity. Happy to answer any further questions. If you own a business or operate a business, let your landlord know that we're doing the petition drive. We want to hear from you so we can get you your individualized petition. I know Matt's going to be helping out with the property database, I believe. So thank you. Matt has my contact information. You're welcome to pass it out. Anyone is welcome to kind of email or call me. Obviously you'll have your questions through the committee, but if you have questions about your own parcel, kind of your tax levels, those type of things, happy to talk to about individual situations. And again, thank you for the opportunity to make our pitch, and we look forward to being successful.
perfect. And Mike, I will email your email address to the committee members so that they can either get in touch with you directly or put you in touch with business contacts that they've got. And then we have a fairly large database of business owners and their email addresses, and we'll be putting them in touch with Mike so that if they've got questions, they can ask him. And if they want to sign on, they can do that as well. So if we think about us putting together a resolution for next meeting, questions that we've got, and then also what are some of the things that we would want to make sure that we are weighing in on from a community perspective to convey as priorities to Mike and the organizing group of the bid. Tanya, I see your hand up, and then Krishna, I see yours.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to address the question that you just asked. I wanted to know if you could send out the map and then if there was a little blurb, because I just a blurb to say that this bid is in process, so I could just send it to WNA.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, whatever the bid is being, they're going out for petition next week, and here's the map and maybe who to contact if they have any questions, so that they're aware.
Yep, that sounds good. I've got a couple of things. I'll make sure that I update those with Mike. They had put together a really nice one pager a while
Oh,
ago.
great.
So
Okay,
yeah, we'll get you the map and that and no problem.
great. Thank you.
And Tanya, no worries about not answering the question I was asking because I feel like that's most of my life.
I'm sorry about that. Next round, next round.
Yeah, I'm kidding. Krishna, go ahead.
Yeah, well, the general advice in Washington is never answer the question that you are asked, but answer the question that you wish was asked. I mean, that's like that's 101. And Matt, you were very good at that. Um, the thing that I would just say, and I know Frank brought this up in email, is I think we might just want to get some clarity on the M&A by April and what is going on with the councilwoman's efforts on that for 2026. I think I think there's certainly community questions on that, and I think we just need to sort of do a better job explaining that.
Yep. No, I think that's fair. I will not make any kind of comments on that other than to say, yes, we should get that information. Maybe I will make one comment, which is that the council member had been very clear about stating that if and when a bid proposal came together, she would support it. This committee knows better than most that the bid organization has taken much longer than folks had thought. And so I think there was an anticipation that the bid application would go in September. Here we are sitting in March with the idea that the bid application will go in June. So I think that's a very appropriate question to ask. And I will also say that when I spoke with Mike last week in preparation for this call, I suggested that he reach out to the council member's office to make sure that she and her team were aware that efforts were still underway and that they were now at a point where they were accelerating to move forward. So good point. I'll reach out to David Meny tomorrow morning and ask, and I'll share that update or have David come and give a presentation in April as well. Other questions, other things that we want to make sure that we are asking of. Jean Hums has been very involved in the bid process. She's on the line too. So Jean, if you have anything you want to add or weigh in on, just throw up your virtual hand. But any other kind of questions or thoughts?
Yeah, I just have one quick, and it's very peripheral,
Yeah.
but there are some RF1 zone or residential zone, single, double, triple family units, lots that should have a clear explanation of whether they're obligated in a bid effort that encompasses or goes around their lot. So we should have a clear answer there for them at some point
Yeah.
sooner.
Frank,
Yeah.
single residential homes are not in the bid.
Yeah.
Even if
Well,
they're
they
in
are.
the map,
They're
they're
in the
not.
map.
They're in the map, but they're not included. They're not taxed.
Yeah. So Frank, let me kind of also meet Jean where she's at and say, it has been a concern of mine because there are a number of single family residences in Literate Park that are included in this bid map. I had extensive conversations with Michael McCarthy about that and raised the same question and concern that you raised. And he clarified, but I do want to pull text and make sure that we've got that in writing so that anyone's concerns are allayed and to make sure that that we're covering our bases. But I think it would be good to answer the question of what I would call non-standard, which would be a single family home or a multifamily that was up to 4 units, to make sure that we understand how those properties will or will not participate from a taxation perspective in the bid.
Yeah, perfect. Thank
My hand is not coming up for some odd reason, and I've been wanting to ask a question, and you actually, this is in alignment. I want to see what the tax would look like for any properties that is around this bid, and how, whether it's multifamilies, buildings, in any respect, and also businesses in any respect, and also single family homes in any respect, what the property tax would look like for them, so that they will know. And if that information is included on the one pager, that's great. But I want to see that information in writing so that they would know what to expect, and especially since we do have a considerable amount of people who are in that affordable housing request zone as we speak, because we're very sensitive about that in this area, and I really want to see how they will be impacted. Thank you.
Yeah, Karen, that's a great question. That's actually one of the big questions I wanted to make sure that we got out on the table tonight. And I think we do need to make sure that that is getting answered. I've got a couple of those answers, which is that if it is a multifamily, for example, quadrangles the Langston, the way that that is anticipated to be taxed is that $10 per unit per month. So each renter is essentially going to be paying about $120 a year toward the bid. But you raise a really important question that I had not thought of, and that is how are the IZ units impacted? And so I think we should go back and make sure that we get that question answered. The businesses, kind of commercial, those are taxed at a flat tax rate based on the assessed value of the property. Gene, you probably have the percentage at the tip of your tongue. I think I have it at the tip of mine, but I don't want to misstate it. And Karen, the way that the leases are typically written, if you do not own the building that you are leasing, the taxes pass through to you as a part of your triple net rent. And so the business owner is the individual that will be responsible for paying the additional bid tax, which is one of the reasons why it's so important that the business owners have opportunities to weigh in, ask the questions about what's the value that the bid is going to provide. And one of the reasons, too, why you heard Mike Wagner talk about their focus on driving additional revenues into the area through their work to make sure that the businesses that are paying these taxes are making more money than what they're paying in taxes.
What
But I think we should lay that all out.
Yeah, my concern also is for the homeowners who are, they own their homes, they own their buildings, and they are in certain income brackets. I want to see, and they are within that bid zone, and I just want to see how they would be affected. That's not, and they're not always IZ. Of under those IZ clauses, I just really have a high concern that they need to have more information out there. And if that information is in that one pager, two pager, five pager, just as long as that information gets out to the community. Thank you.
Yep, we'll make sure that that's in there. And then again, to the point of single family residences, or even if it's a single family where you own the whole building and you are renting out, let's say, your basement or the first floor, those are supposed to be excluded from the bid tax. But again, that's something I want to make sure we get in
Can I
writing.
just,
So
I know
good
Howard
questions.
has a hand up, but let me just jump in here. Is this something we can ask Michael to
Yeah.
produce? I mean, they probably have that inventory and we could
Yep.
actually see it and say, here's the, 5 pages with all the addresses and which are residential, which are commercial. So at least we know which ones are the problem. Not the problem, but to go
Where
to
the
the very
questions
good
are.
point that Karen is raising,
Right.
who are the ones going to be affected?
Yep.
Right, especially everything around the perimeter of the bid. We want to see that inventory, as well as how they will be impacted. That will be the comprehensive reporting that will definitely be effective and also answer the questions that I'm looking for. Thank you.
Yep. Great. Thanks. Mario, I promoted you. Sorry, I didn't see you in the audience. Howard, go ahead.
Sure. For the NMA, we had some pretty good discussions about the governance and administration of any entity that was going to be established. I don't recall hearing much about that regarding the bid. And there could be just some standard structures for bids across the city, but I don't know. And it would be helpful, I think, if for everyone to be on the same page on that to see if there are any concerns.
Yep. That was the second big one that I wanted to make sure that we got out there. And I agree. Michael has, it was actually Michael McCarthy who spent time talking about the governance structure, the board, and things like that. And what he had said is, here's how other bids have done it, but they were not at a point where they had put that together for this bid. So I think what I would want is for us to send, I'll send it over to Michael and Krishna, I'm with you 100% that let's ask them to give us the data as opposed to us trying to find the answers. But I think the two biggies for me are what's the tax rate, who is going to be impacted and how, and then the second is to your point, Howard, what is the org structure, what's the governance structure? I would really like to know how small businesses are going to be represented on the bid. It's really important to me that it's not just large developers, but we've also got small businesses who have a very, clear voice at this table. And both Michael McCarthy and Michael Wagner have assured us that is their intent. But I'd like to have it, hear it from them. I think we'd also raised questions during the NMA governance conversation about the role of community members being able to provide input, the ANC providing input. So I think it'd be good for them to speak on those things. And Gene, you're welcome to comment as well. I know you've been part of some of those conversations, but I think that's a good topic for us to talk about at the next meeting as we finalize our resolution of support. Anything else that's on folks' minds relative to the bid? Okay. I think we got some good information to ask for. I expect that they are going to come back with lots of answers. One of the things that I have really appreciated about this group, and I hope you hear it in Michael's just kind of tone, they're very transparent. They got a job they're trying to get done. They got a structure they're trying to put in place. They really do want to hear about certain impacts that are potentially unintended. That might happen on this community. So I really want to ask those questions to make sure that we're doing good without doing harm. And so if you've got other questions that come up over the kind of next couple of days as you're thinking about it, let me know, and I'll package those in my overall question back to Michael, and we'll look forward to having him back in April. The only other thing that I wanted to highlight, and then I'll ask for any new business, and then we'll wrap up. Is I received an invitation from Howard University. Um, uh, I received an invitation from Howard University like last week to a virtual meeting where Derek Neese Williams, who is their, I think he's the associate vice president. I think he is the associate vice president for development at Howard, will be giving an update on a number of those stalled development activities off of Georgia Avenue. So these are those areas that are north of, I think, V Street, across the street from Atlantic Plumbing, all of those parking lots, the area that was to be the Howard Town Center. And so I actually don't have a preview of any of that other than knowing that they're, really wanting development to happen because it's, for lots of reasons. But I will forward that invitation to this group. Please feel free to join. I think it's important that all of you are hearing firsthand about those development activities. And I tend to find those presentations to be, both useful, but also interactive where you can ask questions about the different projects. And Derek tends to have a lot of information to share. So look for that as well. Anything else? Any other topics, any other items, anything that we covered that folks have latent thinking on? Anybody?
Yes.
Any hands at all?
Yes. Just
Anyone
one.
that might want to ask a question before we end? Okay, hearing none. Oh, Frank.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, I'm sure you're aware, but I believe last couple couple days, could have been this week, that there was a announcement by OP regarding the comprehensive plan. Was it the future land map of the flume, perhaps? But there's a lot of criticism about their publication where they're not upzoning enough. And so I don't know where we might be in that process, where this committee or the commission might be, but I think it's important. I'd like at least to weigh in. If, everybody's busy. We can't get everything done. And there's been, some grand ideas over the last year on participating with the comp plan. But at a minimum, I think there is some easy due diligence regarding upzoning. And at a minimum, if we walk away with no other time and capacity to make improvements or weigh in on the process, that we should at least review the proposed upzoning and propose our own to weigh in on the subject.
Yep. I've gotten a couple of notes from OP. So I will send around a couple of invitations. There's a couple of upcoming events that I think folks should definitely try to go to participate. I've gone to all of them. Frank actually dragged me to the very first one, possibly before I was even elected into my ANC role. But there's another upcoming round that you should be aware of and try to go to. And then yeah, Frank, I think that's a good idea. Let's follow up offline about the specific feedback around the upzoning items. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate the time tonight. 8:26 adjournment. I will talk to you all again soon.
I'm glad I didn't
Thanks,
bet it
Matt.
was going to go to 9 or 10 o'clock because I would have lost my money. So I'm very happy to
can't-
see.
And
Tanya,
I hope
we
you
can't do that every night.
and Matt, you did mark me as being on the roll, right? Being here. I'm here. I'm
Now,
present.
yeah, now you are. Perfect. But
Okay.
I knew you had a conflict earlier, so thank you.
Okay, yeah. I just look, you see, I always try to come in here and I think so lovingly of all of you all. So I couldn't wait to see you.
Fantastic.
Okay, have a good night.
All
Thanks,
right, good
everybody.
night.
Thank you.
Bye.